Peter, welcome to People in Legal.
Hi, great to be here.
It's interesting because I feel very flattered because you reached out to us to after I guess seeing some of the podcasts we've done so far and reached out to us on LinkedIn and we talked about and sort of I got to learn your story, which is a really interesting one. But if you'd like to introduce yourself to the audience and tell us a bit about your story.
Sure, yeah. My name's Peter Ambrose. My background is I'm based here in the UK, based in London, in the UK. My background is I was in tech for about 20 years, worked in the States, worked in the Netherlands, and I'm one of the only people you'll ever come across that decided to get out of tech. You never leave it. And I decided, enough's enough. I've been selling software and it was just really tiring. So I thought I need an easier life. So I figured, what the heck, let's set up a law firm, which I figured would be a lot easier. It turns out really, really difficult. The segue into it was this was back in 2007 when the UK government introduced something called home information packs, which was the concept very similar to that in Australia and also Denmark, whereby people would put legal information together to make it available upfront to buyers, which made a whole lot of sense. At the time, obviously, everyone said it was a terrible idea, and they did everything they could do to scrap it. Ironically, here we are 20 years later, and that's all they're talking about. But anyway, let's not go there on that. So started that business, and that was going for a couple of years, and then the government changed, and new government came in and said, actually, we think these are a really bad idea, irrespective of whether they were or not, and they got rid of them. So that was one business that sort of went up in smoke, but that was, the way it goes, and it doesn't worry me. In the meantime, what I had done was I'd formed one of the first ABSs, so alternative business structures in the UK. This was when they'd broken the monopoly on lawyers owning law firms. So I created a law firm and was doing all sorts of things, doing wills, probate, conveyancing, and so forth. Looked at the American way of doing law, decided specialism was the way, so focused on conveyancing. And that's what we've done. So we've got a successful business doing that. We build all our own technology. And every lawyer that ever works for me said, we've got amazing technology. You should sell it. At that point, I said, no, that'd be crazy. Why would you want to sell a case management system? It's impossible. So decided against that. However, what we did realize was that elements of what we did were really, really useful for lawyers. So we created a new company called Legalito, which is my newest company. I'm still running the partnership law firm, but created Legalito about a year ago. And it's going quite well.
So what does Legalito do? What bits of did you pull out of that out of the law firm? So what things what's the key functionality?
Yeah. The core issue that we found in the law firm, the main problem that we found was post-instruction. This was the issue that people would talk about, oh, lawyers need to be better, they need to be more efficient and so forth. And they tended to focus mainly on the onboarding side of things, maybe also to do with the registration afterwards and all that kind of stuff, electronic signatures. What we realized was where the time was being wasted and a lot of effort and a lot of admin was being put in all walks of law, but we started with conveyancing, was the inquiry management side of things. The idea being that as a buyer, you're doing due diligence on a seller's property. And we had always tracked this electronically. We had always put it into a format that could be used, could be analyzed, could be tracked. And we'd been doing this with our clients for years and years and years, about 12 years. We'd also given them access to our portal. We'd also shared that with the estate agents. So the last piece of the puzzle was how on earth could we share this with other lawyers and get them to say, we're going to move away from emailing documents around, from sending emails with attachments of PDFs and all this kind of stuff, and the mess that creates today and the confusion and the frustration. So we built a platform that was designed to be used by lawyers so that both of us could exchange information. In this case, it happens to be, I ask you a question, you don't give me the answer that I want. And that is Legalito in a nutshell. It's a very simple problem. Every single lawyer has this problem. And we're starting with conveyancing. And the idea being is we get rid of emails and we put an audit trail in place so everyone can see exactly what's going on.
I mean, the security challenges with using email, I mean, it's just incredible. I mean, if somebody's, for example, you know, deposit details and of bank. I mean, you could bank deposit details. I mean, and fake email addresses. There's a ton of security challenges with emails. And I guess what you're doing is you're sort of really having that point-to-point communication.
It is. We have first-hand experience of fraud with email. People don't talk about fraud. They're frightened they're going to make them look bad or something like that. Excuse me. We had an experience about 8 years ago where a client was the subject of a man-in-the-middle fraud, where someone accessed their emails, sent us their bank details with the client's signature on it, and we sent £320,000 to a fraudster. So we saw firsthand what happens as a law firm. At that point, we said, right, we're going to switch away from this. We're going to go to a portal. We're going to get rid of email. And we sort of were starting working on that. We used it messaging and so forth, but we had to make it more secure. We had another situation where a client was sent a spoof email pretending to be us, and unbeknownst to us, they sent £600,000 to a fraudster. And it still shocks me that so many firms are still using email. As I say, we haven't used it with our clients for 8 years. What we want to do now is we want to have other law firms go, you know what, email's bad and we need to stop using it, because one of the problems is there's the expectation that you will receive it. People talk about secure email and so forth. I'm not buying that for 1 second. As long as someone's got an expectation that they're receiving an email from the partnership or as a client or anything like that, if you get something that looks close enough to it, you're going to fall for it. And it's fraud. There's some really clever frauds around.
I think one of the other things that in looking at the whole conveyancing process, I mean, people are actually also using, messaging applications as well, aren't they? I guess that's the other thing they're using as well, as so they're using alongside email as a way of actually backing up things, or there's conversations being had, and how do you actually, I guess what you've got as well kind of like wraps that all up as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to have a single platform where you can put everything through. If you want to put documents through it, which you need, obviously, then that's fine too. So one of the things, for example, we did was we integrated with Leap. So Leap has their correspondence and all their documents in there. We're like, we should be using that. We shouldn't be saying to people, oh, is it on your desktop or is it anywhere and so forth. You've got to centralize everything. You've got to control it. I'm not a massive fan of multi-channel communication. It gets really confusing. We get it we had to build something called a message center in our system, whereby if someone had left a message on the phone, if someone had sent an email, if someone had sent a message through the portal, we had to bring it all together. And we had to write some specific notification stuff because the lawyers were getting it from all sides, and it's really difficult.
I mean, I'm really curious. Like, how do you? I'm just going to go back for a little bit, but how do you actually go from being from being in IT to being in legal, then actually then producing, then making a product? I mean, that's quite the
It,
sort of 360.
it was quite a change, as I say. And I'm like a moth to a flame. I've sort of gone back to it. You just can't keep away. Once you're in tech, you just can't keep away. I I looked at the home information pack issue, and I realized it was a technology problem and a process problem and a legal problem. So having run service desks, I kind of knew what I was doing on that. So there was some common ground. I was selling help desk software. I'd run help desks for software companies. And I thought, I can do that, because all it is really, to use the ITIL, it's incident management, just with a really, really tricky problem. So, and also what I did was, because at the time of home information packs, there was no software out there. I actually built that myself, which was a bit scary. So I built this system so that it could talk to estate agents. So I thought, well, if we can build it for that, we can build it for anything else. So that's how we were like. And also, I didn't really want to stay just in the home information pack side of things. It was a bit narrow. And I always had broader goals to say, well, look, if we're doing at the start of the process, why not do the middle bit, the conveyancing as well? So it was kind of natural for me. It didn't really worry me. I'm like, hey, we'll give it a go. So and I think, and also by then, because we had our own technology in the legal business, we said, well, hang on, let's start developing that further. So we always had our own tech. And that was then we realized that we could build quite good stuff, and our lawyers liked it. And I think it was more the fact that whenever people joined us and they looked at our technology and they said, wow, we've never seen anything as useful as this, and that genuinely helps us, that we started going, actually, you know what, we need to share this. Because every single time I spoke to a lawyer, when they'd come from somewhere else, I said, how's your experience with software? And they would say, actually, pretty awful. Okay, it would either be really old, it certainly wouldn't be cloud-based. And the most common bit of feedback I got from people was, just doesn't really help us. In the basics, it does, of course, and you look at most of the case management systems, and absolutely, stuff like Leap, great product. You've got thousands of people using it. It centralizes your documents, all your data's in one place. Fantastic. But when it comes down to very specific niche requirements, which of course I wouldn't expect any case management provider to do, that's where they fell down. And that's where we were like, we just need to sit around these and sit between them as well. And so it was kind of natural. It sort of just flowed. I mean, as you say, it sounds like a really weird journey, but because we were always underpinned by building our own software for people in an area that we really understood, it kind of made sense because we were like, one of the things we're looking at is something called smart checklists. We've got some other products coming down the line, and something called matter intelligence, which is based on some really clever stuff we've done around analyzing how busy lawyers are and then who should get what work and so forth. So we've got all this stuff that we've built, and we're like, we think that'd be really useful for other lawyers. But as I say, we're sticking to the knitting, and we're just focusing on this communications platform, which is, and to begin with, pre-contract inquiry management.
I mean, it's quite a challenge. I mean, building software internally, then actually building a minimum value, like a market value proposition to take to market. I mean, there's pricing. I mean, can you take us through that journey in terms of how you actually take something you've done innovation internally and how you've actually taken that into a marketplace?
It's really difficult, especially the legal marketplace, right? I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here, right? Okay. I said to someone I talked to someone the other day, I said, I decided to do something that was impossible, to create some software that allowed lawyers to talk to one another, all right? It cannot be done. People have tried to do it in the past. The law society have tried to do it. Land registry tried to do it. You've got some big names throwing some big money at this. There's a couple of firms at the moment. We've got massive investment, all right? And failing spectacularly, okay? The key to it is understanding your market and knowing what the real problems are. So we knew how to build production grade software. We knew. Interestingly, when we first built it, we did all the work ourselves and we built the platform, Smart Inquiries, and we looked at it and we went, oh, that's okay. But it felt like a developer version. So then we said, you know what we need? We need a designer. And not enough firms, I think a lot of mistakes people make is because you can build software so quickly now. And in terms of building front ends, because a lot of it is library based, you can build stuff pretty quickly now. Yeah. And people go, oh, that's really cool. But it typically looks, you get very little differentiation between products and you can't really tell because everyone's using the same libraries, right? So we actually hired a UX designer whose specific role was a UX. Yeah. Okay. And it was expensive, but she was really good. So we were like, oh, it was worth it. It delayed the release by 6 months because what we had to have, I had this goal, which was my mantra was nobody ever goes on a training course for Trello. Okay, no one ever does that. Okay, I wanted to have something where people could use it without having to have training, and that was key because the key to it was adoption. I didn't want to push it to lawyers because, as lawyers know, they get a lot of software pushed at them. I do on a weekly basis. Okay, most of it's dreadful. Okay, or it doesn't fit a particular need. And then you say to people, one of my favorite questions, by the way, is who did you ask before you built this? Yeah. And normally they'll say something like, I moved house last year and it's dreadful. I work in the city. I know about process. It's like, no, but you don't know about conveyancing, do you? So so what we did was we had something that we thought would look good. We understood UX design and we wanted something that was very much the idea that you could give it to people and say, try it. And that's what we did. So we literally, and this was a year ago now, we literally just said, hey, this is available. Because of the nature of it, I could use the law firm, and it was always the plan. I picked half a dozen law firms that I thought were quite go ahead and so forth, enthusiastic. Say, try it. And then what they have to do is they then send an invitation to the other side and go, hey, do you want to have a look at this? And the principle behind the business is lawyers trust lawyers. They don't trust software providers. Okay. So we said to the lawyers, send an invitation. And we said to them, what sort of invitation should you think? And it was always a personal invitation from the lawyer. Send to the other side saying, hey, you're going to get an invite from Legalito. Please give it a go and see how you get on. We looked at the figures yesterday. Okay, 57% response rate. That's amazing, huh?
Wow, it's
57%.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we were surprised. Don't get me wrong, all right? We were surprised. We're like, wow, in fact, it's gone up. It's going up weekly almost. It's amazing, really. And so, like, more than half of people that say, hey, have a look at this, have done, which is amazing. Huh? And the only reason it's working is, and bear in mind what we're trying to promote here, which is a trusted platform
Mm,
For the good of lawyers, and that's the other thing. The message is very much like, we're not going to charge you for it.
mm,
Yeah, you're on the other side. You don't pay. You never pay. And
mm.
that's the other thing. People are so used to getting stiffed by providers. Yeah. And I'm like, no, no, no. And we had to demonstrate. We had to say, look, we know what it's like as a lawyer to have someone chipping away at your margins.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, margins in conveyancing firms are quite thin.
Yeah, dreadful. Yeah, it's really thin. I mean, it is. And so, interestingly, the other thing that we also found was that we figured that this was helpful for because it's such a it's mainly about reducing risk. If I'm frank with you, okay, it is reducing risk, but also saving time and money. Therefore, we could charge that as a service to the client as a disbursement.
Hmm.
So the lawyers could pass it on as a cost to the client because it genuinely reduces the risk for the client.
Mm, interesting. Does that actually have an impact on insurances and insurance premiums and things like that?
Well, the first people we spoke to were the insurers. Before
Mm,
this was a year and a half ago. We went to the insurers and we went, "Da-da, this is what we're doing." And they were like, "Fantastic!" And in
yeah.
fact, what we'd rather we do, that what they wanted us to do was quite funny. They said, "Could you restrict it so that you can only ask certain types of questions?" I was like,
Mm.
"You can." And they're like, "What about only giving certain types of answers?" I'm like, "You can, but I don't think the lawyer's going to go for that." But they were massively interested in it. And because we said to them, we said, "Where's the biggest area of risk?" And they said there were two areas. A claim, excuse me, a claim. One, lawyers not raising the inquiries that their clients raise. And B, lawyers not getting the answers they should. So we said, well, we can put it all together in one big bucket that's reportable, that's auditable, so you can see what's going on. They absolutely loved it. And they were like, this is fantastic. We believe, I mean, it is early days, we're only a year in, but there is genuine, you get all these people that say, oh, our product will reduce your insurance premiums. And everyone goes, yeah, 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 like they do. This genuinely will because it's auditable. And people have seen that. We've got some big firms now that are using this and going, just tentatively, but trying it. People like Mishcon de Rea, these are sensible grown-up firms that are sitting there going, we know about this risk. We know where the claims are. And certainly the feedback is very much so. Once it becomes more widely adopted, that the insurers are going to go, yeah, we can see this as being a significant risk reduction.
Interesting. And so you mean it's almost like you've got I guess for lack of it's like an Atlassian type of model of sort of getting us out there. Like people
Genuinely, I wish. I mean, I wish. Not quite on that scale. They, I love Atlassian products. I think they're fantastic. I think they've democratized quite complicated things into very easy to use bits. And a big fan of this. As I say, we in fact we shared some of the technology that they used in their Trello product. We used it in some of ours because it's all open source, right? And we used it in theirs because we were like, we love the fact that people can use. I give an example, Trello, but a lot of their products, yeah, Trello, people just use it and it looks good, it works well, it's intuitive, the design is brilliant. For what is quite a complicated problem, unstructured data and messiness. And they were really, as I say, that was our design mantra was no one went on a Trello course.
really interesting. I mean, I guess if you were talking to I mean, what would you like to hear your clients saying about your software? Where would you think they would see value? What comments would they make that would actually indicate value?
Well, the good news is they're already making comments. So the number one thing is they say it helps me reduce the amount of time and pain that I go through managing the process manually. So there's a big time factor. And the idea, what they're saying, and they genuinely, there's comments on our website, and people can see this. Okay, we publish these comments, and these are genuine lawyers that are sitting there going, they've got years of experience. They're going, it is saving me so much time. If you imagine in the past, they'd be getting emails, they'd have to go through email trails, they'd have to look at the documents that are attached to it and so forth. So the number one thing that it says is time. But the other one, which is more interesting, is they say it's making my job more enjoyable, which is like, wow, that's to hear a conveyancing lawyer say it's
Mm,
making our job more enjoyable. Which was the goal. We wanted to have software. People go, you know what, I really like using this. And people forget that. They forget that software should bring joy. Why is it that Apple is so successful? Because their products bring joy to people. And not enough people look at the human factor side of things. And and realize that lawyers struggle with huge amounts of emails, with documents, with data, with paperwork. And they're spending so much time on the admin side of it that no one sort of said, how can we make this so that it's easy to use? I'll give you an example, right? When you look at most web apps, okay, and it's always the way, and it drives me nuts. There's so much scrolling, right? There's so much scrolling, up, down, in there. We never had scrolling before we had web apps, right? If you talk to computer users, it's like, no, you have a screen with information on it. You can see it all on that one screen, and if you want to see more details, you bring another screen, right? There was no idea of scrolling up and down. Now, scrolling up and down is great if you're reading a news website, but if you're working on something, you can't be scrolling. And so one of the design goals was we won't have it that it was all on one screen. So we spent hours developing it so it was responsive for laptops, for widescreens, for 4x3s, for all this kind of stuff. With the goal, it was the no scroll rule. Okay, we had to have it. It's like you can see, because lawyers, especially property lawyers, they don't want to be faffing around. They don't want to be going up and down here and everywhere and scrolling. One of the most frustrating things I see for users is when you've got to scroll down to save a document. In what world do we think that people want to be spending their time scrolling down so they can save something? I mean, it's a trivial example, but it's a real example of where people don't look at the users and go, actually, that's quite annoying. I looked at a system the other day and I updated some fields. I went, how do I save that? Oh, that's right. You've got to scroll down. And that's not the way. So the design goal was bring it up on the screen so that everything's always great. And look at, again, I hate to go back to it, but look at Trello. Trello, it's all within your one screen. Why is it so popular? Because people see what's going on. And that was the thing. We had to make it that it was easy and fast to use, that people could get to the information quickly, and they liked it.
I mean, is it I guess it's the magic in the fact that the software you're producing is actually coming from a law firm and the problems that a law firm have actually got, versus a legal tech vendor going into a law firm and trying to study what a law firm do and how they work.
100%. The goal was always to get adoption. Adoption was always key. And to get adoption, you had to have trust. And despite what people might say, people quite often go, oh, well, if you can get XYZ reference, then other people will follow. It doesn't work that way with lawyers. And this is what makes it challenging. There's two ways you can look at it. You can either say, we can spray and pray and we'll give it to lots of really good people, and everyone go, well, if it's good enough for Healy's, or if it's good enough for Dutton Gregory, or whoever, then that's good enough for me. But I know that law don't work that way. The other thing that we have is, because we had the partnership, which was a trusted brand, it made a huge difference. And we were one of the drivers when we sort of started, I won't say mandating, because that's a bit of a harsh word, but when we started encouraging people in November, we saw a huge spike. And it was because, and we could say, look, we're lawyers, we know the issues that you go through. And actually, one of the most common comments I get from people is, oh, we can see from this product, we know you're lawyers. It's like, yeah, because you have to put in other things. Like, for example, you might put something onto the system and then you want to retract it. How often do we have my guys that said, oh my God, I've done this, I need to delete it, I need to do it. And the idea of being able to backtrack, but also audit and do things that you wouldn't think people would really need, like having multiple inquiry sets. Unless you're a lawyer, you wouldn't know you need that. Well, you just have a bunch of inquiries and they set them off and you send them off to the other side, you get the answers back and thank you and good night. And the fact we're sitting here going, no, that's not true. That doesn't happen. And people do it. And so there is this recognition that, and people quite very commonly, there's two bits of feedback they say, don't take this the wrong way, but it's really simple. I might know that's a compliment, because making software simple is really difficult. Yeah. And the other one, as I say, is they say, yeah, we can tell you're lawyers. You can tell you're lawyers, and because it's coming through in the product.
Interesting. I mean, how could legal tech vendors, I guess, up their game? How could they be better? What things could they do? What advice would you give them?
I go out and talk to people. I'm amazed at the number of people that show me stuff. And I say to them, I'm like, do you think a lawyer would use that? Yes, it does this, and this. And you go, don't do that. Please don't do that. I've got a genuine concern, okay, of where we are in the market right now, in the legal tech market. It's being undermined by people pushing product that really doesn't execute. You can get away with that. Software vendors in the past, from my experience, could get away with underperforming software. The problem is that because it's being pushed reasonably hard, and it's only in a few niche areas, this is the idea that legal tech is changing the whole world and everyone's being pressurized into it. I'm not really seeing that. I'm seeing a few areas where they're doing it, particularly around onboarding and data collection and so forth. Nothing really around the tricky stuff. A bit of AI around the middle bit, but that's in the M&A market and the more the corporate world, not so much private client. But I think the concern is that people are saying it's an amazing solution for you. I've been looking at it and going, no, you haven't. And in fact, you're the third person today that's told me they've got an amazing solution. So therefore, you know what? I'm not going to look and I'm not going to change. And I worry about lawyer fatigue because, and we do see this. I see this with people when we send an invitation over to the other side. No, we don't use third-party platforms. Now, the reason why they don't use third-party platforms is because they normally have to set up an account. And how many logins do we think we've got as lawyers? Yeah, dozens of logins, and that's really annoying. So one basic bit of tip that I have given to a number of vendors, all right, use single sign-on. Please use single sign-on. And they don't. They just don't do it. And I'm like, do you know how annoying it is for a lawyer? They say, you need to set up an account. And we actually use it as a selling point. We say, look, people will say to us, they go, I'm not signing up to a separate account. You go, no, I agree. Please don't do it. So we say, but there is an orange Office 365 button. So click that. Two things. A, they're not a separate account. And B, it reassures them with security. Because they're like, this is your office security. It's not us, it's you. So you get that. And you have to, I think vendors need to work harder in that area, especially single sign-on, because what might sound like convenient to them is actually critical to their users. And the irony is, to use single sign-on, it's so easy now. It took us half a day to put single sign-on into our product. We just
Oh
had
yeah,
to choose 365. We're building a client portal now. We're adding Google onto it. That was 3 hours work.
amazing.
Yeah, it's really quick now, really quick.
I mean, you must. I guess it's interesting because when in a legal tech vendor sort of environment, I guess there's spend on marketing and sales. I mean, where are you going to put your coins towards more marketing, more sales in that areas?
Okay, we've been working this for about a year now, okay? And the number of face-to-face meetings I've had, I think I've had 8, okay? And I've got over 1,000 lawyers using this now, okay?
Incredible,
So, we've not spent the only marketing money I've spent has been on a MailChimp license, and that's literally just send out a monthly update to people, okay? However, what I did do was I spent 2 years before I started Legalito on LinkedIn, cultivating the
amazing,
issue. Yeah, that I did, and it was a genuine plan. Okay, it was like I want to, as the owner of a law firm, I want to talk about a problem that affects us all, and it's how we manage contract inquiries, pre-contract inquiries, fee people, and what a pain it is, and how annoying it is. Not talking about product. Don't talk. I still don't really talk about product. Every now and again, I did one yesterday where I put a little tiny bit of the screenshot, just a tiny little bit, and that was only a self-deprecating bit to say, "Hey, look what we forgot to do." So I kept away from product. We're working on various different techniques. One of the best techniques is trying to drive awareness without pushing product. And so, for
oh,
example, like
interesting,
today, having these sorts of conversations to say, don't push product because people go, no, not interested, but push the issue, which is everybody is wasting so much time. So I spent 18 months building credibility. And even then what we started doing, we went through various phases. Then we said, hey, these are the guys that are using it. On our website, we've got something called Hall of Fame. Okay. And when anyone registers, their company name, their firm name goes on there automatically.
amazing.
Really simple to do. Yeah. And I've now got 840 firms on there.
I mean that is really gutsy because I mean really you're putting yourself out there because those guys can actually equally say, well, this is just crap, but they're
Yeah. Oh,
obviously not. They're
absolutely.
happy.
Absolutely. But you know what's really interesting, right? Is that, and this is genuine, all the rules say if you want to use someone to promote and so forth, other than quotes, obviously, if I get quotes, I get permission, whatever. But what I did was I put the firm name up there. I've only had one person say, can you take that down? And that was only because we were just saying, hey guys, because interestingly, one of their assistants had said, I love this. I'm going to talk to the partners and I'm going to make them use it. And I was like, well, good luck with that. Anyway, obviously the partner went, absolutely not. We're not doing that. And also take our name off your website. So one out of 840 firms in
Incredible.
the year.
I really like what you said about talking about bringing attention to the problems on LinkedIn, using LinkedIn as a platform to bring attention to
Yes.
problems. How many lawyers are you finding using LinkedIn? I mean, is it broadly used? I mean, what's your success been like?
Uh, People read my stuff because I'll meet them at events and stuff. They go, "Oh, I saw your posting," and so forth. Whenever I post, I'll get between about 2 to 4,000 views. Most of my stuff now is about what's going on with inquiries and who's doing what about it and what issues we're seeing. It's a good. It works well over here. Um, uh, in terms of numbers, I mean, I've got about 8,000 followers.
Amazing.
And of that, about 5,500 are lawyers. So there's a lot. There's a lot of lawyers. They do use it. The problem with LinkedIn at the moment is it's got a little bit toxic, which will pass. In the past, the challenges, and it is a genuine problem. Because what we've got at the moment, certainly in the UK, we've got a lot of fear going on in the market between lawyers that have been doing it for years and years and years. They know change is coming. They know this, otherwise it wouldn't be so cross. Yeah. Having to go at other lawyers, and they're terrible, and these are terrible, and that kind of firm, and that kind of firm. So there's a lot of toxicity. And what that means for lawyers is they're getting a bit turned off LinkedIn at the moment. I'm hoping it will pass because it's really not helpful. And I think those lawyers that are out there posting this really aggressive, dismissive content, they're not helping themselves. I know that it is a particularly lawyer-like problem when there is this, I want to demonstrate how really smart I am. And the problem with that is if you do it in the public forum, not only does it undermine the profession as a whole, because of course everyone reads it, but it also undermines those that go, I'm going to go to LinkedIn because it's for useful information. Because they go, well, why do I want to say anything if I'm only going to be shot down by some aggressive? And it's a tiny minority. That's the other thing. A tiny, tiny minority. But I am very disappointed in the current status where lawyers are saying, yeah, I don't really go on LinkedIn now anymore because it's too toxic, which is appalling, an appalling state of affairs. And those that have caused this state of affairs have got a lot to answer for.
I mean, it is just busy. It's a sea of things, and I guess if you can establish yourself a nice little niche on there, and you've got people to look at your content and things, it's a fantastic way to get that. But you're absolutely right. There's people that you see all sorts of arguments happening on there, and people being shot down. And I think it's nice when you've got really constructive comments and thoughts, and yeah, people putting those sort of comments into thought pieces.
It is. I'm finding it breaks into two halves with LinkedIn. You've got people that will post, and I'm just talking about conveyancing lawyers for now, for this point, because that's what I'm focused on. Okay. When we look at conveyancing lawyers, you see a lot of this is all dreadful. This is all dreadful. It doesn't matter if it's the clients, doesn't matter if it's the other side, and it's the woe is me, and wow, this has been a really tough week. So you've got those people, and on the other side, you've got the people that are saying everyone else is terrible. So you've got the really aggressive. So you've got the people that are going, well, why am I doing this? Which is, and you've got the people that are saying, yeah, but you're not good enough to be doing this. And there's very, very few people that are posting. And a bit of advice to anyone there in the tech world. Okay, if you want to post about technology, okay, please create useful content. Please don't just say, oh, our product's amazing because it enables you to do this, this, and this. Because if people want to find out about products being amazing, they will seek you out. If you, like for example, we publish stats. This is how many people have replied to inquiries. This is the average number of inquiries that we get per case. This is that we haven't gone into the detail of it yet. We might do. This is the most popular thing. This is what we're saying. It's typically like this is what we're seeing. We had one the other day where we created a case for a firm that they needed to set up 220 files. Okay, so a massive situation. Okay, it's a portfolio purchase. Okay, we calculated roughly how long it would have taken them to do it manually. All right, without Legalito. In Legalito, we did it in about 2 minutes. But we
Wow.
worked, it would have taken them 2 days to have done that. So we went, instead of going, hey, look at us, it's amazing, we saying, look, talking to a law firm, we didn't name them. No, we didn't name them. We didn't say that. We just said, talking to a law firm, they had 200 properties. We worked out it would take us 2 days to do that. Okay. We did it in Legalito. It took a couple of minutes. And that was one of our more popular posts recently. And people go, wow, so there is a solution. And it was subliminal. It wasn't saying Legalito's amazing. It was stop, think about what you're doing. There has to be a better way.
It's
And
very smart.
you've got to provide provocative material where people go, maybe there is a better way.
Mm,
Maybe there is. And I can't stand it when people use LinkedIn as glorified advertising. I I don't think it works. I'd be interested to know what your thoughts are. But when I see stuff that's going, oh, people just love our platform, you go, oh, well, I
uh,
don't know what it is. I don't like it.
you brush past it, don't you? Really, you
Yeah,
do brush past it. I mean, the thing I think about LinkedIn is actually I mean, what I just love is authenticity. When people got
yeah,
really authentic, knowledgeable comments that are actually original, they put it up there. I mean, you can you can tell the posts have been put up there by ChatGPT. I've gone
yeah.
there and they've actually created some really crappy, crummy post about something advertising. You just go, oh
Oh,
no, please
no,
don't.
please don't. I mean, I do spend a lot of time blocking and hiding hiding posts. I don't know if other people do that, but I do because I'm like so much noise, and I'm like, this is crazy. And you know, I think what's more interesting is me as a business owner. I do often look at myself and go, what am I looking for from LinkedIn? What is it? And what I'm looking for is I want to find people that have new ideas and going, we need to change because I want to be friends with those people. And we really need to focus on the more positive. I was at an event the other day. I was at the Ground Shore event the other day, and a guy came up to me. I never met him before, and he goes, "Fantastic to meet you." And I went, "Hello, who are you?" And he owned a law firm, okay, quite a big law firm. And he goes, "You know what?" He goes, "You know what? The way you post on LinkedIn, I love it because it's positive and it's constructive, and it makes such a difference." And I was like, "Well, thank you very much." You know, and it was great. But I thought, wow, that's quite shocking because I obviously stood out. That means that no one else is. Well,
Mm,
what are you doing, guys? You know, stop this. Oh, you know, my client rates us 5 stars on Trustpilot. Don't care. I'm
no,
not your client.
no, that's right. It just becomes really a bit, as I say, a big sea of content, and digging through the stuff you want's very difficult. I mean, I've been on LinkedIn since, goodness me, it would have been, I think since the start about 90, sorry, not 90, sorry, 2007.
Yeah,
Might have been
yeah,
2007, I think I first started using it.
yeah,
And just been a fantastic platform to use. But I mean, over time, the amount of content and stuff that goes on there, and there's, pictures of dogs doing tricks and all sorts of stuff on there, which you think is a bit humorous, but you sort of go, well, actually, come on, I want to just show me the things I want to see versus the stuff that I
yeah.
just don't.
I think that I still think people said to me the other day, "What social media do you do?" I only do LinkedIn because to
Same,
me, it's the
same.
only credible platform. And I think certainly for any vendors out there, you know, people, you get these experts, as you can tell, these social media experts that go, you really need to do Instagram. And I'm like, I really, really don't. And, or X or anything. It's like, remember what we're trying to do here as a software vendor, what we're trying to do is all we want is to build trust and credibility. That's all. And if you think that Instagram will bring you trust and credibility with law firm owners or the people you want to sell to, then you don't understand your market. You just don't get it.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. I mean, I love your approach though of actually of the, I guess it's really putting information out there, drawing attention to problems that people are actually having, talk about potential solutions, and letting people come to their own conclusions.
Yeah. Yeah. I gave a talk. I was at Legal Geek the other week. Okay. And I gave a talk, all right. And I was just talking about it. And it was the title of the talk was There's No One Coming. All right. Lawyers over, we need the government, we need the regulators. And my point was, there's no one coming. All right. Okay. You have to sort this out yourself. And I gave the talk and I didn't even put my website address on it or anything because they had said, don't do any marketing or anything like that. Think of it like a TED talk. Right. So I taught literally all I did was put my name, and Legalito, a bit like behind me here. Okay, that's all I did. All right, that's all I did. And 3 people found me, and I thought, because you want to find me, and
Exactly.
you have to. People say, "Oh, you should promote your. You know, you need to be pushing your brand." People don't want that. If they're interested, I spoke to a big firm. I've got a great prospect, a very big law firm that does a lot of developer work. Okay, I've never spoken to them before, and they said to me, they went, "We saw you talk, and we knew we had to speak to you."
Amazing.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I'm like, wow. I mean, I've been in sales a long time. I'm like, That never happens. Like,
Never, never. No, no, that's amazing.
it never happens. And it's so funny when you see people post after they've done trade events and stuff like that. They'll go, "Oh, we've got so much interest. We've got these leads." I've been doing trade shows and exhibitions for 20, 30 years in America, in Germany, the big, okay. You rarely get decent leads from these sorts of things. But if you provoke thought and have people that go, there was a guy there that I met and he said, "Oh, I saw you talking and I know you've been emailing me," because he actually showed an interest in us and there. And he said, but I have been ignoring you. I said, "Just, I know you've been ignoring me, and that's okay." He goes, "But really good to meet you. And you know, I will stay in touch." And I thought, you have to people buy on their own timelines, and that's the other mistake that people make. They think they can
Mm.
affect timelines. And you can't. You know this thing, this 4, 7, 11 touches and stuff. It's a bit like, you know, you've got to go through the 11 touches across 4 environments, you know, 7 times. You have to do the spade work. And that means going to events and talking not necessarily about your product, but talking about your understanding and the value that you can bring, especially to lawyers, because they're a skeptical bunch.
They are. I mean, I mean, in the industry, you hear some salespeople say, "Look, I've been ghosted." I
Yeah.
mean, what would you say to that about ghosting?
Okay, people do ghost you, and but that's sales. I mean, you know, it's like the reason why people ghost you. The reason why, I mean, I've been chasing. I saw this guy 9 months ago, and he loved it. And he goes, "Fantastic! He runs a decent law firm." I actually went to see him. One of the few I went to see, and I thought, well, that must count for something, right? And then he's been ignoring me for 9 months, and every month I just send him a note going, "Haven't forgotten," whatever. And I'm sure he gets it. He goes, "Yeah, idiot," and he's still there. But I know that. And then I tried different channels, tried on LinkedIn. I tried one. There's one guy. It was really interesting. He's on Neighbor, actually, the firm next door. And he was really keen, did something. And he ghosted me, definitely. Then I went on the LinkedIn. I went, "You can run, but you can't hide." You know what I mean? And he did come back to me. He goes, "I've been getting all your emails. And yes, I am ignoring it. But I'm still really interested." And I think the mistake that salespeople make, especially in tech sales, which has got long sales cycles, I mean, we're looking at least a year with this stuff. You'd think
Yeah,
it'd be quick.
definitely.
You've got to be, is people will buy on their own timescales, and they will
They do.
ghost you because the time's not right. It's not a priority. It's it's like the old saying, you know, "I lost a software sale to a truck." You're like, how someone bought a truck? Yeah, they needed the truck. They didn't need the software.
Yeah, so true. I mean, I think the biggest competitor is just, I guess it's apathy. It's the fact that they just do nothing. There's no decision at all. I mean, that's the biggest
Papers.
competitor.
Yeah, yeah. Our biggest competitor is Microsoft Word, which is an unfortunate one. But the main one, in all seriousness, the main one is this fear, and it's not of change, but it's of risk. Because everyone says lawyers don't like change. Nobody likes change. It's not special to lawyers, right? The point is the way they're doing it at the moment. They go, "Well, it sort of gets through okay, and the risk profile's okay, and it sort of works. And my lawyers work terribly hard. Change it? No, because I've got something that sort of works okay." However, the problem that I've got is that when you look at what we're doing, the status quo is not okay. And it's not acceptable because you're getting loads of claims. If it was, I go, crack on with your Word documents and all that. Crack on with your tables and stuff. That's fine. Only we know that it isn't. And all you've got to do is talk to law firm owners and go, "Non-decision is not acceptable." And they will say to us, "Oh, I know. I know." The problem is that it is far safer to make a non-decision. So, for example, where we're seeing people that are being forced to move off software platforms because they're end of lifing, they're sort of going, "Oh, no, I did." For example, we host our internal application on this server that's end of life in November. End of life. Okay, we have to change. We have to change that. And we were talking about it the other day. We're like, this is out of our hands now. We have to do this. And I think what's happened is a lot of law firms have said, "We've got this old software. We've had it for 20 years. It works okay." And until someone's brave enough to go, "Nah, we're not doing that anymore. We're not supporting it, or we don't really want you using it because we haven't got the expertise. So we're going to put up our fees." Standard practice, standard tech practice. You know, everyone's getting very excited about this at the moment in the legal market, but these outrageous fees. I'm like, they're not outrageous. You just weren't paying enough to begin with. And you got away with it for many years. And bully for you. And you've run your business pretty much for free. And that's lucky. Until lawyers are forced to do something, they won't change. And that's understandable. That's really understandable.
how does a person who's really bright, has innovative ideas in a law firm that may not be at partner level, how do they push a business case through? How do they get change happening in the law firm?
That's a great question. A great question. And it comes from the most unexpected places. I'll give you an example. I'll give you two examples. One example from my firm. I had a paralegal years ago said to me, at my previous place, we used to do all our submission for stamp duty through the case management system. I'm like, wow, that's good because we're making loads of mistakes with stamp duty. And I looked around and I was like, well, that sounds great because if I can stop them making mistakes, that's fantastic. And at that time, InfoTrack were just new to the UK, and they said, yeah, we can do that. We've got a single platform. And I looked at it and went, I like the idea of a single platform. I like the fact they had a decent search provider. But for me, it was the idea of saying, from that paralegal. And to this day, I look at it and we changed. We've only got one major provider, that and an insurer, yeah, and it's InfoTrack, and we went to them because of this paralegal. I've seen it with Legalito, whereby I've seen paralegals use this stuff and go, actually, you know what? This works for me. This works for me. Gone to the partner, and this is slightly more unusual. And the partner's gone, oh, wow, that's fantastic. I'm going to make that happen. Because if you say it's good, I respect you. I'm going to make that happen. And we've got firms now, slowly but surely, where the partner has gone, let's make it happen. And it can. And I think my advice to anyone, if you're don't think of yourself as junior, think of yourself as a person doing the actual work. And my advice is, if you've got something that genuinely makes a difference, not incremental, but a genuine difference, you have a duty to speak up. You have a duty to your business owners and not to hide away, not to sit there and go, this is my clever secret. And look at me, I've got this wonderful thing. You need to share it and to have the confidence to be able to say and not be put off. Because people will say, I had another paralegal. We started using this tool that took Word attachments and converted them to PDFs automatically, which was great because our rule in the firm was never send a Word document, right? And then we started using it and it was great. It seemed okay, but actually then more and more people said, actually, we don't need it because we do remember the PDF. And so we scrapped it. It was a cost and we got rid of it. But I think it does depend on the environment. But you do need to, just to reiterate, there's no one coming. And if a business owner, if you're a paralegal or a lawyer or junior lawyer, or whatever, and you get the pushback and say, well, the government needs to change this, or we're waiting for the regulator, all that kind of stuff. You need to say, there's no one coming. Give it 10 minutes. Try it. Have a look. 10 minutes. Take a look at it.
Mm. Is that something that I guess, from a standpoint of, I'd love to see some content on that and helping people sell change into the practice and actually give them a voice and give them a seat at the table and actually, that's a how to do. I'd love to see some content on that side of things. So I think it's one of those areas where people have got the ideas, have got the initiative, but how do they get that voice? How do they push through the change? How do they make that case?
It is difficult. I think what you've got to do is you've got to have something that's really simple. I think the problem is if you go to if you're like, I've seen this before where relatively junior members of staff say, this case management system's terrible, we need to replace it with X. Well, it's such a big jump. You've got to take people on that journey. And I think making suggestions where people that would have such a huge impact, but it would take such huge investment of time, effort. I think you have to pick your battles. And the problem is then people, like, I do get people coming to me all the time. Wouldn't it be good if we could do that? What we did in the partnership is we've got something called an ideas list. So what people do is they put it on there. They've got an idea, they put it on there, and then other people can vote, like on Facebook. Oh yeah, I like that, or I need that, and that builds consensus. So then we triage it. And we go, well, we had 20 votes for that, but 5 votes for that. Actually, that 5-vote one is actually more important than that 21 because of X, Y, Z. But we should do that 21. We did that from the beginning. From the very beginning of the business, we put this ideas. We used to call it a moan list, but then we decided that was a bit negative. So we changed it to ideas list.
I love it. So Peter, I guess last question is, if people want to find out more about Legalito, why people are using it, the benefits, that kind of thing, basically you'll supply us with your, like there's a link to your website, that sort of thing you'll supply us with, and they can contact you on LinkedIn to ask you about them. If you've got people who actually have these ideas, want to make changes, they contact you on LinkedIn.
Love to, absolutely. I'll talk, as I say, I love people with new ideas. I don't like people that shoot you down. So if anyone's listening to this, look me up on LinkedIn. We've got our website. Take a look at this, have a chat. I'll talk to everyone. I do talk to everyone because just every now and again, someone will tell you something, and you're like, that's a really good idea. And there's not enough of that, and there's not enough supportiveness going on in the industry. I think from what I can see worldwide, which is a terrible indictment, there's a lot of them and us. I'm trying to bridge that gap. I'm a pragmatist. I run my own business. Love to speak to anyone.
Yeah, absolutely wonderful conversation, Peter. Thank you so much. You've been very generous with your time and very generous with ideas as well. And I encourage our listeners to connect with you on LinkedIn and find out more.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate that.